You're listening to TNCRadio.live, Houston, Texas. This station is owned and operated by IMSICO LLC, a privately held Texas corporation.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is "My job is people, everyone is my business." But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
The Russian government officially missed bond payments on international debt for the first time in a century because of the Western sanctions that limited access to global capital markets. Harry Michaels reports.
Moscow's struggles now threaten its bond ratings, but Russian officials charge that the default was induced by the United States and allies cutting it off from the market. The Kremlin has been slammed with economic sanctions since its invasion of Ukraine in late February.
Russian long-range bombers fired a missile that struck a crowded shopping mall in Ukraine's central city, killing 13 people and injuring 50.
People were running around, and after about 30 minutes, I decided to go and check out the place. The center was just destroyed. I'm out of words. I did not expect that something like this could happen in my town.
South Korea's new unification minister said Monday that Seoul's response to a nuclear provocation by North Korea will be much sterner than under the previous administration. In a meeting with foreign reporters in downtown Seoul, Unification Minister Kwon Young-si said South Korea is still looking to engage in dialogue with the North, but underlying the stronger position that the President Yoon Suk-yeol has staked out against Pyongyang. In the largest military buildup since the Cold War, NATO plans to boost its high readiness forces to 300,000 in response to Russia's war in Ukraine. David Alexander reports.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg made the announcement Monday, one day before U.S. President Joe Biden heads to a NATO summit in Madrid. The NATO summit will be transformative, with many important decisions, including on a new strategic concept for a new security reality, a fundamental shift in NATO's deterrence and defense, and support to Ukraine now and for the future, Stoltenberg said.
This is the latest news headlines. WNBA star Brittany Griner's detention in Russia has been extended through December 20th, according to reports. The decision was made during a preliminary hearing that Griner attended on Monday, Russia's state-run TV reported. Griner is expected to remain in custody throughout that time, according to the Associated Press. The WNBA star did not respond to reporters' questions as she walked out of the courtroom on Monday. The next hearing is scheduled for July 1st, when her trial is expected to begin. 3 people were killed and others were injured when a passenger train traveling from Los Angeles to Chicago struck a dump truck and derailed in the remote rural area of Missouri on Monday.
I was afraid the windows were going to smash, so I shimmied myself up against the exit to the room.
People around me have bumps, bruises, they've got bruised ribs, and I don't have survivor's guilt. I don't know why, but I'm very thankful that everyone in my group, they're going home.
A man who complained that there was too much mayonnaise on his sandwich opened fire at an Atlanta sandwich shop, killing 1 employee and injuring another, police said. The shooting happened around 6:30 p.m. Sunday at a Subway restaurant attached to a gas station in downtown Atlanta. Police said the man argued with 2 female workers before shooting them.
Me and my partners were actually reevaluating whether or not we're going to continue to do this in this neighborhood anyway.
This was a very tragic situation that did not have to occur, Atlanta Police Deputy Chief Charles Hampton Jr. told reporters Monday. The company planning to buy Donald Trump's new social media business has disclosed a federal grand jury investigation that it says could impede or even prevent its acquisition of the Truth Social app. Shares of Digital World Acquisition Corporation dropped almost 10% Monday as the company revealed it has received subpoenas from the grand jury in New York. And that's the latest news headlines. I'm Alan Edwards.
I'm Ron Samuels. We put it in reverse gear so you can enjoy the history of popular music and hear the soundtrack of life Wednesdays at 8 Eastern and 7 Central, right after the train station on tncradio.live.
I'm Hope Savara. Join us on tncradio.live at 7 p.m. Eastern with Building Strong Minds with your host, Dr. Christopher Cortman.
Welcome in tncradio.live. This is Taillights with Larry and Angie Baum, a couple that's been driving out there together for over 3.5 million miles. But they haven't been boring. They got a few stories, and that's why we're here on Taillights on tncradio.live.
Thank you for the introduction, Tom. I am Angie, and I'm
Larry.
As he's taking a swig of Mountain Dew. Oh, we're so glad that you guys joined us for Taillights. We have a very special guest with us tonight. We have Mike Bird. He is a truck driver that has been in the industry for over 23 years. Mike, you want to come in and just tell everybody a little bit about you?
Oh, me? Oh, yeah. Well, my name's Mike, and like you said, I've been out here for 23 years. I'm just one of them average guys that just drive around the country. I don't know what else to say about myself. Just I'm an average guy.
Just an average guy.
So I'm assuming that you've hit every state. How many times have you been to Canada?
I've been to Canada once, and I told them I would never go back.
Bad border time?
Huh?
Was it a bad border?
Well, I went up there, and it wasn't bad going up there. I really enjoyed it. But when I had to pay to get back in my own country, I said, no, I don't want to come back.
Yeah, we've been up there 3 times, and I think getting into Canada is the easy part. They're really nice and laid back. Getting back into the United States can be a pickle.
and that's what it was, It was just the experience, I was like, nah, I don't want to do this again.
Every issue we had at the border was always coming back.
It was, and it was the worst experience. So I said, I don't need to come back. If I got to go through this much drama, I don't need to come back.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's such a shortage of truckers that have loads that go from the U.S. to Canada, because the process of getting back into the United States is such a huge hassle.
Well, everybody thinks it's so easy, They say, well, we love going up there. Well, you might love going up there, but I don't like the hassle.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. I love going up there. I love seeing what Canada has to offer. It's very beautiful. But yes, coming back is a pain in the butt.
Yep, it sure is.
Now, I know you had mentioned that you've been driving for 23 years. How did you wind up getting started in the trucking industry?
I got injured in the fire service. I was a firefighter before I was a truck driver. And then I got injured in the fire service, and wound up getting my CDLs through some friends, and started driving trucks. When I got medically retired, I couldn't do it no more. This is where I ended up in the seat, and I've been here ever since.
What's the biggest change you've seen from 23 years ago to now?
The biggest change?
Yeah.
Politics.
Yeah. Okay. Besides politics,
I agree with that, though.
But yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I mean, yeah. That's what I'm just saying. Politics, but I mean, there's no more respect out here. The change of respect is gone. When I first started, we all had respect. We respected each other as drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And now, the camaraderie, the respect, it's all gone. It's all for himself. I remember when I started, we used to be able to go to truck stops, like me and you would meet up somewhere, and we get the old barbecue grill out and go out there and grill out in the back of the truck, and enjoy ourselves, and everybody would pitch in money, and we all would have a big grill, and we have that big camaraderie, the big respect, but it's not there no more.
No, it's absolutely not there. I remember those days.
And I wish we would have more respect, more camaraderie, and we'd help each other out more out here, but it's everybody for themselves, so that's the biggest change that I've seen out here. You know,
That's funny that you mentioned that, because we had a couple of people over the last, I don't know, month or so, and that's what they say too. They miss being able to just, chill out in the parking lot when they're down on the 34, hanging out with other truckers, or when they get done with their 10, going in and having a meal at the countertop, and all the truckers, instead of being on their phones, everybody's talking to each other, and you just don't see that anymore.
Yeah, you don't see that no more. And it's sad, and I wish we'd come back together as a brotherhood and sisterhood out here. That's
I totally agree.
That's a big change out here. It's not like it used to be, and that's what I try to tell people. It's not what it used to be. And I wish it was.
I agree with you. I wish it would go back to that too.
Now you got the e-logs coming into play, and that was a big change. I work for a great company right now where I don't have to run them e-logs. We have the glider kits in our trucks, and we don't have to run those e-logs. So it makes me feel like it makes me feel like I'm back in the old school.
Coloring books. I miss those coloring books.
Yeah, I miss those coloring books. I miss the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great industry. I mean, it's not for everybody. Especially for the new people that they're coming out here now, and they're not understanding anything. You hear a lot of people talking about missing family. Well, yeah, you miss everything out here. You got to make a big commitment out here. It's been a big change. It really has.
Yeah, 6 years that Angie's been out here, we've made it home for Christmas twice.
Yeah, when you're talking about holidays, I used to get upset. I was like, man, I want to go here for my time off, and I get halfway down the road, the truck break down, and now I can't get to where I got to go, and I'm stuck. I'm 2 or 3 states away, and I'd be upset, but it's just it's all changed now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, one of the hardest things about trekking, and I always try to tell anybody that's interested in going trekking, especially those that have young children, I always try to stress to them, I don't think you understand how hard it's going to be on your family when you're not home for the holidays, the birthdays, all your kids' big milestones. So it's always something you got to think about pretty seriously, because whether you're regional or over the road, those are usually big milestones you miss.
Yeah, especially with a newborn, you'll miss the first steps, first words, first two.
Well, I've been out here for so long, and I've watched drivers come and go, and it's sad. It's sad to see, because they're getting upset because they can't be with their family. But there's a big commitment that you got to make.
Yeah. That's why they always say trekking's not for everybody. I don't think people understand how hard of a job it is mentally along with physically, because, it's a pretty mentally taxing job that we do every single day. By the time you get done with your 10 hours, you're just exhausted.
Well, and I want to raise something about something, that people they're not aware. I do stuff from PTSD, but that's from the fire service, but us drivers out here go through a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. Our statistics and our suicide rates have actually gone up in trucking. Things that people ain't aware of, because of the things that we see out here. Death, tragic things that we come upon. And our stress rates are going up. Our suicide rates are going up.
Yep.
And
I honestly, when I was going through the training process, I realized that they give you enough training to get your CDL, and that's about it. But I really wish through the training process, somebody had given me a little bit of a heads up to the amount of death and destruction that you really do see out here, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I've only been doing this is my 7th year, and I can guarantee 1,000% that I suffer from PTSD from the amount of death that I've seen. And I don't think a lot of people understand that.
No, they don't, and that's why I try to raise the awareness, to other drivers out here, because you see these drivers out here, they're sad, they're lonely, their wives left them or their girlfriends left them because they don't understand the job, and they get sad and lonely and depressed, and and they end up taking their lives, and and it's something that a lot of people have not noticed out here. or it's not talked about, So I try to raise the bar, I was trained by an old school, the man that trained me how to drive trucks out here. When I got in the truck, he said, "What did you learn in school?" And I said, "Well, I learned how to drive a truck. I learned how to." He said, "Throw that stuff out the window." That's what he told me. He said, "Throw it out the window." He goes, "Now you're going to really learn about trucking." And that man had over 30 years under his belt, and he taught me good. He taught me with respect. A lot of, when you talk about change, that's another thing I see it changing now. It's not about training a student or training, a person. It's all about the money to them.
Yes. We'll be right back and continue our conversation with Mike. Be sure to come back and listen to Taillights with the Baums.
The best GPS for truck drivers. Although there's several GPS apps, it's better for truck drivers to rely on a system that's specifically geared toward their type of work. Smartphone apps lack the ability to show truckers the roads that are inaccessible to trucks. Buying the right GPS for trucking can be tricky and overwhelming. To save you from tons of research and reading reviews, the Truckers Network has listed the best GPS devices for truck drivers in 2020. Check out their website. Here's a brief list. Garmin Diesel 580 LMTS. The Garmin Diesel 580 LMTS is an easy-to-use GPS with hands-free Bluetooth and built-in Wi-Fi. It features customized truck routing for the size and weight of your truck. It also provides helpful predictive route warnings for dangerous curves, steep grades, bridge heights, weight limits, and more. You can find nearby hotels, restaurants, and parking with their easy brake planning. This GPS is truly made for the long haul. Other features include customized truck routing, built-in directory of truck and trailer services, easy brake planning, and service history log. The TomTom Trucker 620. The TomTom Trucker 620 is a 6-inch GPS navigation device that allows you to get the most out of your driving time. The TomTom Trucker 620 can connect by Wi-Fi, and that lets you update without a computer. It makes calling and messaging easier by providing hands-free calling and smartphone services. It also provides free real-time traffic updates and truck maps throughout North America. Other features include battery lifetime up to an hour. It reads messages out loud from a smartphone. It's compatible with Siri and Google Now. It has customized truck routing. The Garmin Drive Smart 61 LMTS. This Garmin device makes trucking much easier. The Navigator features a collection of smart features, in addition to easy-to-follow instructions and helpful driver alerts. It also provides hands-free calling, live traffic information, and built-in Wi-Fi. With this GPS device, all you have to do is look up and drive. Other features include voice-activated navigation, Bluetooth calling, select live parking, and a rechargeable lithium-ion battery that lasts up to an hour.
Hi, I'm Hope Savara. Join us every Monday on TNC Radio Live at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's Building Strong Minds.
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network Show with Shelley Johnson. Weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back to Taillights with the Baums. We got Mike going on here. So, Mike, you were talking about, what were we talking about? I forgot.
Him and his brain. So we were talking right before the commercial break about how one of the biggest things is we've noticed over, I'd say the last 10 or 15 years is kind of the lack of respect out here on the road amongst truckers, where we're kind of everybody's out for themselves. And that was kind of what we were talking about, and the other thing I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but the other thing I've noticed is it seems like a lot of the new drivers that are coming out, let's say fresh out of CDL school or fresh out of training, still don't have the training or confidence to be out here on the road by themselves.
Well, they don't. I mean, because back in the day, like I've told you guys, when I first started, I started out with an older gentleman that's been out here for a long time, and he was all about training. I remember when we got up there to the cabbage. We were on our way up there to Washington, way up there in the northern part. Mm-hmm. And it was, and that man said, hey, there's a set of chains on the back in the bag back there, under the bed. He said, why don't you go out there in the dog box, grab them, put them on, and come back and get me when you get done. I was lost and confused. He wrote instructions down on how to put them on. But I had to learn myself because he wasn't out there, and I was all upset about it. Mm-hmm. But then I got them on. It was a struggle, but I got them on. I was reading all the instructions. He went out there and he checked them, and he goes, "Okay, now we're going to go down the mountain." And I'm like, "Huh? We're going down the mountain. I'm fine, because the roads were icy. They were terrible up there in the cabbage."
Right.
We got down to the bottom, and I remember that truck stop from this day on because I still have that shirt somewhere, and it says, "I survived the cabbage."
That's a great shirt because that's a scary pass in the winter.
Oh, yeah. But then when I got down to the bottom, when we took the chains off, he said, "Did you learn the lesson?" I said, "Man, I still got to get the seat out of my butt, And he goes, "Let me tell you something. Them chains are for looks, they're not for driving. They're for looks." He said, "Don't ever put them on to get across the mountain." He said, "If you would have told me no instead of went out there and done it, we would have just sat right there on top of the mountain because you were smart about it."
Yeah.
He said, "Chains are only for getting to a safe location if you're out stuck somewhere." He said, "That's the only time the chains should be put on." But he said,
"That's my philosophy also."
Yeah, that's our philosophy too. If we have to chain up, we're not going anywhere. It's not worth it. It's not worth a load, and it's not worth ruining the truck.
No, and that's what he was trying to teach me. But I didn't know that. I was young. I was wanting to learn. I had this momentum. I wanted to go. I remember getting up there, Snoqualmie. He goes, "Okay, we got to chain up again." I said, "No, we're not chaining up. We can park right here and go to bed." Because he taught.
Yeah, when I was a trainer, I used to do that. Pull into a parking lot and teach them how to put chains on. So when they were out there on their own, if they did have to put chains on, they knew how to do it. But we did it in a parking lot. I taught them, put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off.
I think that's like the number one question Larry and I get asked, especially throughout the winter months, is there's so many drivers that will ask us, my trainer never taught me how to put on chains. How do I put on chains? And that flabbergasts me. I'm like that, especially if you're doing all 48 states. You know that there's so many states that require that we have chains in our truck. Who knows if you come across a situation where you're going up a mountain and all of a sudden the sign lights up saying you have to chain up and you've got to get somewhere safely. It's like I think every driver needs to know how to do that.
Well, they do, but chains are not just, and I've used chains more than just snow. I've used chains to get stuck out, out of a customer's parking lot, because it was so muddy.
Yep.
And you need the extra grip, so they're learned. But you got these trainers now, from back when I was being trained, because when I was trained, man, that trainer, I'd put my hand on the gear shift, man, he would slap it with a cane, because he didn't want my hand on the gear shift. There were so many different things that he taught me. But now you look out here and you watch these trainers train students, and it's sad. Because either they're yelling at them or they're screaming or they're down on the ground on their phone instead of watching what they're doing.
Oh, that's a big one. We've seen that so many times where you'll see an instructor like in an empty truck stop trying to train them, and rather than watching what they're doing, they're on their phones. It's like, well, what good are you being to that student if you're on your phone?
Unless they're doing what we do.
Well, speaking to him.
Like if there's a tight spot, I'll have Angie go in the back on her phone while I'm in the truck on the phone, or she's backing in, but we talk to each other on the phone.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like, the trainer taught me, a lot of stuff out here. I mean, he was old school, and he taught me a lot of stuff, but you see, I'll bring up this point. Something that scared me the other day. I don't know if you guys ever seen the new CR England trucks.
No, I haven't seen them yet.
All right. I seen one in a parking lot, and there was 3 guys in it. And I went to one guy and I said, I like your truck. He said, "Yeah, it's my new training truck." I said, "Your new training truck?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I just got it." And he goes, "Now I can train 2 students." I said, "How in the heck do you train 2 students on the road?" And he took me back to the truck while the students were gone. And it has a bed up above the driver's seat and then 2 beds in the back. And I'm like, well, how in the heck are you training? He said, oh, it's about the money, man. I make more money now that I got 2 students.
Oh. Wow.
So
oh my gosh.
So you're not teaching them anything? You're more worried about the money?
Does that not scare you, knowing that those drivers are going to be on the road? Oh my gosh, that's scary.
It is scary, I used to get mad at my trainer because we'd go down the road and he, out of the blue, he'd say, hey, Mike, what did that sign read back there? Well, what do you mean? What did that sign read? Oh, yeah, what did that sign read? I said, I didn't catch it. He said, so you... And I'm like, yeah, I was paying attention, but you didn't know what that sign read back there.
Mm-hmm.
I still do that to Angie.
Yeah.
Every once in a while. We'll pass the sign away. What did that sign say?
Yeah, he's really good about doing that to me, like if it's a bridge height. So I've gotten to the point now that, every single sign that comes up, I make sure I read it just in case he asks me. But in the beginning, it was mainly to make sure that I was watching for my clearance, to make sure I could clear underneath stuff. But yeah, he still does that to me 7 years later.
but you're not getting that anymore. You're not getting that training aspect no more. I trained a long time ago, and people told me I was. I've got a student right now. I keep in contact with her. She owns her own business now. She's got 7 trucks. And I still keep in contact with her. She always joked to me. She said, "You were the hardest trainer on me." She said, "You were the hardest one."
But she probably learned a lot too.
And that's what she told me. She said, "I've learned a lot more from you than I have from anybody else." She said, she goes, Mike, remember when I first started, I told you I went through 2 trainers? I said, yeah. She said, but you taught me a lot. She goes, look what I got now. And I got a good business, I've got trucks of my own. She said, I've got, a nice house now. She said, I owe this all to you.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's awesome. Especially when you get to see somebody that you've trained and get to see how far they've come. That's so awesome.
It is. It's like it goes back to the respect, the camaraderie, the respect.
Absolutely.
When I look at these new kids coming out here these days, that's what I want to be. I want to be trained the right way.
Absolutely.
Don't think about the money. Money. You can't. What do you do with money? You can't do anything with money.
Yeah.
You shouldn't think about money. Dollar signs in your eye. It was really sad to see this trainer talking about dollars instead of talking about students.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, you can make a lot of money doing 2 students, but can't take it with you if one of them kills you.
Yeah. So
That's absolutely right.
And how are you training 2 students? When do you sleep?
Yeah.
But
we're going to take a quick commercial break, Mike, but when we come back, I figured maybe we could talk about the scariest thing that you've ever seen on the road. And just a quick reminder to all you guys, Clutch Time Sports with Josh and Ivan is going to be coming on right after our show. So if you're a big sports fan, make sure you guys stick around.
Yeah, those guys are great.
We'll be back in just a few minutes with Mike.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. This is now the 4th video on emotions, and we talked about how emotions are key to everything you do. And we talked about how emotions come not from reality or events or situations, but from your perception of things. And in the last video, we talked about your investments. What matters to you is what creates emotion. Now I want to talk to you about how all emotions are statements about you. Do you ever go to a movie with somebody and you come out of the theater and you're all excited, or the other person's all excited about the movie and the other person says, it was okay? Or a restaurant where, one person is thrilled and excited, what a great meal, and the other person is like, I never want to go back there again. Our emotions are statements about us. And we could react differently, that is, perceive things differently, even though we're perceiving the very same event. You know, I tell a story about a homeless man in the street, and 4 people walk by this homeless person. And the first person looks over and looks away quickly and says to self, I didn't see anything. And the second person walks by and says, but for the grace of God go I. That could have been me in my drinking days. And the third person looks over and says, you know, it's no good bums like that that bring this country down. Here I am slaving every day to pay taxes for some lazy person to lie shamelessly in the street. And the fourth person walks by and says, oh, the poor soul. I wonder if there's something I could do. Walks over to the person, sees that the person's sleeping, puts a $20 bill in the pocket, and walks away praying and thinking positive thoughts for that person all day long. Well, what if I told you that the homeless person is an actor lying in the street? Those reactions, those feelings, those responses of the 4 people are statements about them. That's somebody lying in the street. How I think and feel, those are statements about me. In the final video on emotions, I want to talk about the meaning of our different emotions and the fact that they're a call to action.
Hot Shots Secret presents Steve Summers' Overnight Drive nightly at midnight Eastern, 11 Central on tncradio.live or download the app .tncradio.live.
Hey, rideshare drivers and gig economy workers, the host of TNC Radio.live, the Rideshare Rodeo Podcast, and the Gig Economy Podcast come together for news, talk, music, stories, laughs, and more. We're live Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on TNC Radio.live.
Welcome back. You're listening to Taillights with the Baums. I am Angie, and we were talking with Mike. And Mike, right before the break, one of the things I was going to ask you is, you've been out here for 23 years on the road. What do you think is the scariest thing that you've ever seen out here on the road?
The most scariest thing?
Yeah.
Oh God, I can name a whole list of scariest things. I don't know. I mean,
pick one.
Have you ever seen any really bad accidents or something that just really shocked you out there?
Oh yeah. I've seen a lot of wrecks. I've worked a lot of wrecks. Being a firefighter, I still carry that to this day on. I'll stop and help, and help anybody, in need. The biggest, I guess the biggest, scariest thing is driving at night. And I'll say it this way, because people don't understand their body at night, so they get really sleepy. And then you get up on top of them, and they're coming over on top of you, or they're swerving back and forth because they're not used to what their body's telling them. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Larry always says, like, between 2 and 5 a.m. it's like the hardest part for him.
That, and when the sun is about to come up, like about an hour before the sunrise.
Yep. When I train students out here, I'm going to go back to the training thing. I always told my students, right before the sun come up, stop and take you a break. Either take you a 30-minute nap or power nap, or get out of the truck and walk around for a little bit. Let the sun come up a little bit, get back behind the wheel, and keep on trucking.
That's exactly what I do.
Yep.
As soon as that sun comes up, I'm refreshed.
That's right. Listen to your body. But,
yeah.
And then you're talking about here again, the scariest things I've seen out here is that these students not understanding the control of the truck. They come down these mountains at 70, 80 mile an hour, and they're not understanding the concept of the truck because no one's ever taught them.
We actually had that happen to us in Maryland. We were coming down a mountain in Maryland, and the truck in front of us was using just his regular brakes to come down. and I think it was like a 7%, 8% grade. And we had to get him to pull over because he was blowing so much smoke. We were afraid his tires were going to catch on fire, and he had no idea about a Jake brake. I'm like, I think he'd only been on the road 3 or 4 months, and we're just like flabbergasted. And we're like, what do you mean you don't know how to use a Jake brake? You're burning up your brakes, and you're going to catch your tires on fire.
Yeah, I caught up to him, blew my horn, and Angie's pointing to him to just get over. And he got over. I got my fire extinguisher out, cooled off his brakes, and was telling him, dude, man, why don't you use your Jakes? What's the Jakes?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to bring it. I think I know you guys work for FedEx, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, this had nothing to do with a FedEx driver, but this was the scariest thing I've ever seen. I'm driving down the road, and all these trucks are passing this UPS driver, but I'm watching black billowing smoke coming out of his steer tires. And I'm driving. I get up to him, and I see his steer tires are on fire. And I'm blowing my horn, and he's waving at me. And I said, "Dude," and I wrote down my window. I said, "Dude, you are on fire." Well, I get him to get him stopped, and he goes, "Well, I didn't even know I was on fire."
Wasn't watching his mirrors then, I guess, because how can you not see the smoke billowing out?
Especially at your steers.
Yeah.
It was black smoke coming out of the steers. That was the scariest thing. How do you not see that, or how do you not smell that while you're driving?
Smelled too. Yeah, exactly.
And he goes, man, I'm glad you caught me. And I said, no, now let's drop your trailer and let's get your truck out from underneath your trailer so your load don't catch on fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what we ended up having to do. I helped him dial it down his gear, pulled his pin, and told him, get out of here. Pull up, you know. Let's not burn the load down. But it's right. Road, and it was like the scariest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, how do you not know your truck's on fire?
Yeah, and thank God you got his attention to get him to pull over, because I bet you a million trucks had passed him and did nothing.
And did nothing.
And that's the lack of respect they were talking about. It's like nobody cared about him. They just wanted to get away from him.
Yeah, they just want to keep getting down the road.
Yeah, they don't want to be tied up behind them. You know, I'm not worried about being tied up. I'm worried about somebody dying.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
Listen,
do what now?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I have a model. You know, I don't want people dying around me. You know.
Yeah.
If I can save one life a day, I'm doing pretty good. You know.
We had my girlfriend Terry on a couple weeks ago, and she used to be a paramedic, and now she's a truck driver. And I just have to say, I think that's so cool that, you know, you still use your knowledge of, you know, working in the fire industry, that if you see an emergency, that you still stop to help. Because so oftentimes, sadly, we'll see a truck driver or a four-wheeler, you know, that's had an accident or somebody's hurt, and too oftentimes nobody stops to just go right past them.
Well, you know, and I do have a paramedics degree too. I've got my degree as paramedics. I've got a first aid kit I carry in my truck. You know, my next investment, if I can ever come up with the money, is going to be an AED to keep carrying the truck. You know, that way I can perform life-saving procedures out here. You know,
that's smart.
You know, that's another thing I try to promote out here is CPR training, CPR and AED training out here for drivers.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you watch a driver come, you know, and this happened to me 4 months ago. I had a driver walking in the parking lot and just dropped dead. Well, he didn't die, but he had a heart attack right there in the middle of the parking lot. And me getting out there doing CPR, I found out later on he's still alive. You know,
nice.
If I didn't know the CPR training, that man would have just ended up dying in the parking lot.
Absolutely. You know? I tell you what, in the last, 3 or 4 years, too many truck drivers that I have known have died in their truck. You know, that's the scare. I think that, to me, that's the scariest thing being out here. It's like, I don't want to die in my truck. We see it too often.
We do. We see it too often, you know. And that's another thing besides the PTSD. I try to promote CPR and AED training.
That is so smart.
I think that's the biggest thing that truck drivers should actually go take is the CPR AED training course and the first aid course. So they know what to do when they go up to the accidents. I've watched drivers, you know, pulling patients out of cars, you know. No. You don't want to, if there's no smoke, no fire, don't pull them out of a car. That's the wrong thing to do out here because you can add more to the injury. Now there's gasoline or there's a fire going on. By God, pull them out of the car and get them away, and then we'll worry about the other things afterwards. But you got to. But everybody would have the proper training out here as drivers. With CPR, first aid, AED. We can go back and helping each other.
A couple of years ago, we had an accident happen in front of us. And there was a young girl in there, probably about 17, 18 years old. And her left arm was battered, very bad. Her head was hit. And I jumped out of the truck, and I did not move her a bit, but I stood by her side, talked to her till the ambulance got there. I'm pretty sure I kept her out of shock.
Oh, yeah. And then her parents called us like a day or two later because she'd actually gotten hit by a drunk driver, and we knew the gentleman that hit her. That was a mess. But that's another thing. We're like you. We're the type of people that if we see something happen and we can offer assistance, we're going to stop and we're going to do that. And it'd be nice to see, especially the truckers, but the country come back to that state of mind.
Well, I'll bring this up to you guys, when you guys do roll upon an accident and you see somebody injured, and if you guys don't do it, I carry rubber gloves in the truck just for that in case purpose. But try to hold their necks and embrace them. To give them a little bit of C-spine to keeping their head supported. Until help arrives. Don't let go until help arrives.
That's smart. That's very smart. Yeah, we have a first aid kit on here, and we didn't actually start carrying gloves until COVID, but we've got a box of gloves on here too. So we do try to be a little prepared. You never know. You just never know out here.
Yeah, you always want to make sure you have the proper PPE, when you're doing stuff like that. Like I said, I've got a medical bag that I carry with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it stays here in the truck. The next best smart. Yep, my next investment is the AED machine. If I can get one of those in the truck, I'll be better.
I did want to tell everybody that if anybody wants to follow Mike, you guys can follow him on Facebook. His Facebook profile is Mike Bird, and you put up so much information up there about being on the road, and sometimes you even do a little live streaming to show people what it's like out there. So I love watching. I loved it when you had, and I know I'm going to mispronounce it. It's not Little Yoda, but what was the little dolls that you had?
Oh, that's the Baby Yoda dolls.
The baby doll, yeah. You had like 3 or 4 of them on your trucks, and you always put up pictures. I always loved watching those.
Yeah, I've lost those in here in the past, and I got to get more. And what it is, I do carry those things around, and I also carry, I try to carry a little bit of teddy bears. And it goes back to the accidents, working accidents or stopping in an accident. These little kids are out here crying and screaming their parents are hurt, And a little animal, stuffed toy, goes a long ways to these kids.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, Mike, but when we get back, I figured maybe we talk to you and maybe you have some good advice for the newbies that are considering going into the industry or just starting trucking. And we can talk about that when we get back after the commercial break. You guys want to stay tuned. Don't forget, you guys can watch Larry and I on the Truckers View on Facebook and also our page, Married to the Road, as well. And we'll be back in just a few minutes with Mike to continue our discussion.
As a professional driver, the engineers at Front Lane know that you remain focused on the road regardless of weather and traffic conditions. That's not always true of the drivers behind you. Every 9 minutes, another commercial vehicle is rear-ended by a driver failing to control their speed. And guess who gets the blame? When you have to brake quickly, Tailbone illuminates a series of bright LED lights that allow the driver behind you to react up to 50% faster. Using amazing accelerometer technology and a battery that will last for years, Tailbone meets the standards set by the NHTSA and the FMCSA. Learn more by visiting www.frontlane.com/tailbone. That's www.frontlane.com/tailbone. Approved in all 50 states. It's Tailbone by Front Lane.
This info blog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Everything truck drivers need to know about sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is an issue that affects 1 out of 3 truck drivers. Truck drivers who drive tired may be unaware of how much their lack of sleep affects their driving. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration attributes 2.2% of all driving accident fatalities to drowsy driving. While there's not a law in place that requires truck drivers to get testing for sleep apnea, if you suspect you have sleep apnea, stay with us to learn more about sleep apnea and how it can affect truck drivers. What is sleep apnea? Sleep apnea is a potentially serious sleep disorder that causes you to have pauses in your breathing or take shallow breaths during sleep. It's an extremely common issue that affects millions of people in the United States. If you snore loudly during the night or still feel tired after a full night's rest, you might have sleep apnea. According to the Mayo Clinic, the main types of sleep apnea are obstructive sleep apnea, the more common form that occurs when throat muscles relax, central sleep apnea, which occurs when your brain doesn't send proper signals to the muscles that control breathing, complex sleep apnea syndrome, also known as treatment-emergent central sleep apnea, occurs when someone has both obstructive sleep apnea and central sleep apnea. Symptoms of sleep apnea. According to the Sleep Foundation, all 3 types of sleep apnea share certain common symptoms. Disrupting breathing in which a person's respiration can become labored or even stop for up to a minute at a time. Excessive daytime sleepiness, morning headaches, irritability, limited attention span, or difficulty thinking clearly. Many of these symptoms arise because of poor sleep and decreased oxygen levels that occur as a result of interrupted breathing. Some additional symptoms are connected to obstructive sleep apnea. Snoring, including snoring that's especially loud, and involves gasping, choking, or snorting that may cause a person to briefly wake up. Morning sore throat or dry mouth. Frequent need to wake up to urinate. Causes and treatment options for sleep apnea. Sleep apnea occurs when the airway becomes blocked while sleeping. Here are some common causes of an increase in airway blockage. Being overweight, sedative medication, alcohol, family history of sleep apnea, smoking cigarettes, sleeping on your back, nasal congestion. If you suspect you have sleep apnea, reach out to your doctor to get a treatment plan going. Avoiding treating your sleep apnea can result in losing the ability to operate a commercial motor vehicle. Most often, treatment plans will require you to have a CPAP machine in your truck. The CPAP machine helps pump oxygen to you while you sleep. In addition to using the CPAP machine, your doctor may recommend exercising, losing weight, or using different oral appliances that help hold open your airways. As a truck driver, it's crucial to take care of yourself because trucking is such a difficult and demanding job. At times, it can be challenging to take care of your health. Sleep apnea is a real issue in the trucking industry. We encourage all drivers to be aware of the symptoms and to get help if they suspect they have sleep apnea. This info blog was brought to you by The Truckers Network on app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network radio show with Shelley Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel particulate filter regeneration.
The DPF catches particulates left over from combustion. The DPF regeneration cycle cleans the filter with temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. A computer sensor triggers the DPF regen, which is often accompanied by a loss of power and fuel economy. The frequency of DPF regens are in correlation to the cleanliness of the fuel burn. Under heavy operation with the dirty burn, DPF regens can occur multiple times per day. Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme Fuel Additive promotes a more complete combustion, creating fewer emissions and therefore fewer DPF regens. Vehicles using Diesel Extreme experience 83% less DPF regens.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, Fine Farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Welcome back to Taillights with the Baums. I'm your host, Angie, and I'm here with my hubby, Larry.
Hello.
And we were just talking to Mike, and I know you've been in the industry for about 23 years, and you've done a lot of training. What advice would you have for some of the new drivers out there that are just coming into the industry?
Get some advice?
Yeah.
Advice and tips.
Advice and tips. Well, if you're new, I guess the best advice is you're going to pay attention, to learn, have the open mindset of learning. If you're coming new in this industry, you're married, you got a wife and kids at home. Get out of the mindset about making money on the first shot you're out here, because you're going to have to learn. It's going to be tough. You're going to be away from your family for a while. And the reason why I say that is because I see a lot of guys getting out here getting excited. Well, I'm going to make all this money on the first 2 months, and I'm out here, and I'm going to be training. I'm going to get to go home, and they get that in their mindset, and then they get heartbroken. And then they get angry, and then they quit wanting to learn. If they know what they're going to get into when they first get in and out, I think it might go a lot easier for them.
I totally agree.
And I really hate to say that. You have to put that in your mindset. Man, I'm going to be away from my family. I'm not going to make the money the first few months. I'm going to have to really batten down the hatch at home. It's going to have to get out of there. I'm going to have to buy food, in the grocery store, survive. I guess the next biggest thing to me is your trainer. If your trainer can't answer your questions, or your trainer can't look at you and say, "Hey, I don't know the answer, but let's find it together," it's the best way of putting it. I think you need a new trainer.
That's a really good way of thinking, because so many drivers I've talked to over the last 5 or 6 years, I think that's the biggest issue, is they go from trainer to trainer to trainer, because so oftentimes the trainers, A, don't want to teach them, sleep when they're supposed to be training them, or they lose their cool while they're training them. And it's like, how is a student supposed to learn and ask questions if you as a trainer are not open to having them ask the questions? They have to. That's part of training and learning.
That's it.
And don't be afraid to ask for a new trainer.
No.
It's your life.
Never, ever be afraid to ask for a new trainer. If that man ain't training you right, or he's screaming and yelling at you and putting you down, it's time to go.
Yeah.
I watch these trainers out here training students, and they're out there yelling and screaming and hollering at them. If you got a trainer who's going to yell and scream and holler at you, you're never going to learn anything. And all you're going to do is get yourself out of here and get yourself hurt. You need to find the right trainer. Don't be afraid to open the mouth and speak up.
That is some really good advice, because I think that's the other thing. A lot of times people get scared. They're not gelling with their trainer, and they don't realize that they can ask for a new trainer, especially if you don't feel that you're getting the training and support that you need. Because the bottom line is, you've only got training for a certain amount of time, and you don't want to be that driver that's out on the road feeling super unprepared and not knowing, what to do.
This 80,000 pound truck, and we're not always grossed out to 8,000 pounds, but I'm going to say 80,000 pound truck. This truck's going to get you killed or somebody else killed if you don't know what you're doing. And you get these trainers out here that are always thinking about money. And if your trainers think about money, leave, run.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Hey, I don't know how to do this, but can you help me? And that trainer scratches his head and says, "Yeah, we'll learn that next week." Don't be say, hey, look, I can't wait till next week. I need to know now.
Yeah.
Because you will never, ever know on how to do something if you don't ask for it. When you come out here, when you first come out here, you got family at home, you're not going to be making the money. Say, hey, trainer, can we go down to the grocery store so I can buy some lunch meat, some cheese, mayonnaise, some chips, some things or some soups that I can eat while I'm on the road. Put your money back so you got your money for your bills for your wife and your kids. Knowing
absolutely
for a few months. I've watched families get destroyed because their husbands come out here thinking they're going to make all this money, tell their wives they're going to make all this money, and then they get this $700, $800 paycheck.
Yeah.
And they're like, how am I supposed to pay my bills on this? I was still allowed to make all this money. and they get this in the mindset, and then they want to quit. They're upset. They're screaming, and then they quit. They shut down. Now they don't want to learn.
Patience. It'll all come.
It'll all come. You know, the rewards at the end is awesome. Once you get from around the last of the steps, everything comes to, you know, the best things at the end of it. You know.
Absolutely.
And you know, say you start out Swift. Hey, guess what? You know, wait for 2 years. Go to another company. You know, but don't think every company is going to be the same as what you expect them to be, because every company's got their own flaws.
Yep. I started with Swift. I did 10 years with Swift. It was really good.
Mike, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. And I know that we're going to have to get you back on here again, because I think you're a wealth of knowledge. But we're going to get ready to end the show. And don't forget, guys, that we do have the sports show coming up with Josh and Ivan. And that's coming up next. And that is Clutch Time Sports. And we want to remind you guys that you can follow Larry and I on Facebook at The Trucker's View, and also Married to the Road. And next week, we've got a really special guest with us. We're actually going to have our boss on here, and he's a fleet owner operator, and also a truck driver. So you guys will get to talk to our boss, Noah. So thank you so much for listening to Taillights with the Baums, and we will see you guys back here next week.
Bye, everybody.
Stay safe.